Maisa, whoever was here last week understands that the obvious hemshich from Hilchos Shabbos into the halachas of Krias HaTorah is not like most people would think, that on Shabbos we lane, because Be'emes, as the Olam is learning now, the sugya of Krias HaTorah, and as Yerushalayim Yarchei waits eagerly for the arrival of the Koilel Aguda and Mamish, all the excitement, Pashit. But everyone would imagine that the obvious connection of Hilchos Shabbos and laning is because on Shabbos you lane. But now that you're learning Krias HaTorah, you see that that's not the pshat, because laning is a takana from Moshe, and one of the protei dinim of the takana of Moshe is Mondays and Thursdays and Yontif, etc. And it's obviously more of a Shabbos Indian than a Monday and Thursday. But our connection to laning, and specifically talking about laning and the halachas of Krias HaTorah now, is because we just learned the halachas of kosher. We just learned matir and kosher, and the sugya that we ended off with was the sugya of Galila with the vimple, with the olden style gartel that used to tie around the Sefer Torah, and how are you allowed to do that? What happened to kosher? What happened to matir? And that's something that the Maisa, we learned. There was a kulas, there's a shaila. Certainly it's a problem if you would be doing it for once a year, like a maftir yainer, or chadaim, etc. And we saw it's a minig Yisrael, and anybody who has that minig, the minig is kaddish, etc. So now that avada, if we had already started talking about the Inyan of the vimple, of the gartel, and the Inyan of the galila, so now the obvious hemshich and the start really of Hilchos Krias HaTorah, which is the start of Hilchos Krias HaTorah in the Sefer Shulchan Aruch and the Sefer Torah, which is in Siman Kuf Lamed Daled, is the Siman and the halachas of Hagba and Galila. And that in Mitzvah Hashem today, I understand that the Olam probably is maybe preparing perhaps more for the other sugyas of Krias HaTorah, which Mitzvah Hashem we'll be talking about next week in Eretz Yisrael, Bez Hashem. But nonetheless, it's a vada, no less important. If anything, we'll see even maybe more important to a certain extent is the halachas of Krias HaTorah, of the Hagba Galila aspect of Krias HaTorah. And that's the reason why the Shulchan Aruch and Siman Kuf Lamed Daled, that's how he starts the Inyan. He starts with Galila. And actually, as a matter of fact, something which is already very mysterious, and we'll have to try to figure out today, he sandwiches the whole Krias HaTorah between Hagba and Galila. And to make it even more complex, he puts in Kuf Lamed Daled. What would you put first, Rabbi Yisai? I would be putting first, maybe we would put first perhaps the laning, and then at the end we would put the Hagba Galila. Here in Siman Kuf Lamed Daled, he takes the halachas of Hagba. So that's the start of the laning for some reason. In Siman Kuf Mem Zayin, the name of the Siman there is Dinei Galila Sefer Torah. So I have Dinei Hagba HaTorah in Kuf Lamed Daled, Dinei Galila HaTorah Kuf Mem Zayin, and everything else in between. So let's try to figure this out today a little bit, if we could. It's part of the mystery. Why is it that I'm waiting I pick up the Hagba and I don't do Galila till 14 Simanim later? So what's that all about? That's something we also have to try to figure out today. And to try to appreciate the Hagba Galila and Bez Hashem, to try to go through the Protei Dinim. The truth is, the Makor of everything we're going to talk today about is in the Masechta Shiurim, where he brings down the Inyan of Hagba Galila. But the truth is that there's an earlier Makor to the Chshivas of Hagba and Galila, and it's almost a frightening Makor. There's a Ramban in Parshas Kisavai, in Perek Zayin, in Pasuk Chavav, that he brings like this: By Yushalmi Soita, says the Ramban, Perek Zayin, Halacha Daled, Ora Rasha Lo Yakim is Divrei HaTorah Zayis. So the Yushalmi has the kasha. Ora is the one that isn't going to be making the Torah. In fact, the Yushalmi, what's a Sefer Torah Nafalas? Chalila, is there somebody who would throw a Sefer Torah on the floor? What is this? Says the Yushalmi, Rabbi Shimon ben Yokim Oimer Zeh Chazin. So the Ramban brings, that's going on the Chazin. Or to the Chazin that's not making the Torah. What does this mean? Omer al derech Haggadah. It's an Hagazin Sheina make him Sefer Torah la'amidam ketikunam shla yiplai. It means that the Chazin, when he put the Sefer Torah away, he put it in a way where it could possibly fall. Or is to such a person, Rechaim Shmulevitz Zechron Levracha used to say when he would see a Sefer on a windowsill in a way where it could fall, Rechaim Shmulevitz would say, would you put a baby like that? A person has to have a certain covet for the Sefer, Kavachoyma, the Halakha Sefer Torah, and the tragedy that a Sefer Torah Chalila falls. Or the person that puts the Sefer Torah in a way where it could possibly fall. But the Ramban goes on and says, the li nira, I'm going to tell you a different shot. The li nira ala chazin she'ena mekim sefer Torah ala tziber laharit pnei ksivasai lakoil. It's going on the person that does Hagbah incorrectly, and he lifts up the Sefer Torah in a way where the Olam is not able to see it. And as we're going to see today in the Masechet Seifrim and others, that the Ikar objective of the Hagbah is that people should see the Sefer Torah, and they should see the laning, they should see the words of the Sefer Torah. And a person that does it incorrectly, so then he's begether Oru Asher Leyakim the Torah Zayis, he doesn't pick up the Torah properly. HaRav says in the Masechet Seifrim how he has to pick it up, and everyone has to see it, and everyone has to bow. Says the Ramban, he's begether an Oru. Obviously, the Midi Toiva is more than the Midi Peranius, and a other person that does properly the Hagbah, which will today, Bez Hashem, we'll try to learn Bez Hashem, the halachas of the Hagbah, the Galila, if he does it properly. So then Avadi is Baruch Asher Yakim as HaTorah Zayis. He's begether Baruch, the one that upholds the Heilig Torah. And the truth is, the Chasam Sofer in Yarchei and Simon Reishai and Vav says, perhaps from this Ramban and from this Yerushalmi, is a Makor that Hagbah could even be deraisa. Unbelievable. The whole entire laning is perhaps not the Raisa, as the Olam is learning now. Maybe it's a Takanas Moshe Rabbeinu, like the Olam probably saw from the Aruch HaShulchan. Perhaps it's a Takana from Ezra, but it's the Etzim Takana of laning is probably not the Raisa. Mashain came lifting the Sefer Torah, the Chasam Sefer says it's perhaps even a Deraisa, and the Birkei Yosef in Kuf Lamed Daled in our Siman, he says okay, it's just an Asmachta, but nonetheless the Hagbah is a very, very, very important thing. So important is the Hagbah that the Knesset HaGedolah, well, we'll see in a moment. Actually, let's go a little bit more in my order. The Gemara in Megillah, in Daf Lamed Beis, I'm aware that a lot of the Olam probably just finished Masechta Megillah recently, and came out the last Gemara in Masechta Megillah brings out the chshivas of the Hagbah, the Goylul. We'll see. The Gemara says you have a person. We have 10 people. Who do you give the most chashav aliyah to? What do you give him? So the Gemara says, you know what you give him? You give him Hagbah. And the Gemara says that's the most schar, is the person that's Goylul gets the most schar. And the truth is, this is where the plot thickens. So it seems to be now, I'm talking about the Hagbah, Baruch Asher Yakim as HaTorah Zayis. And it seems to be over here that the schar goes for the Goylul, the person who's doing Galila. Hey, don't we give it to a child there, Klau? And the Shulchan Aruch, not in Kuf Lamed Daled, where it's discussed the halachas of Hagbah, says that you're noitel schar kulam by Hagbah. In Siman Kuf Mem Zayin, which is the name of the Siman, is Dinei Galila Sefer Torah. That Siman, says the Shulchan Aruch, after he brings down this Inyan of the Galila, he writes, Gadol shebe'oisam karu b'Torah v'goylalai. When you have the biggest person, Gadol shebe'oisam shekar b'Torah, the biggest person, he's the one that does Galila. Uregilin l'knoisei b'damim mikarim l'chav v'mitzvah, and you're supposed to buy it with a lot of money. It's a Isa by Gemara. The Mishabura brings down over here, Hagoylul, when noitel schar keneged kulan. You should have a gadol being the one that does the galila. So what's going on with our minig? Why didn't the Shulchan Aruch bring this down by Hagbah? Why does the Gemara bring it down by galila? Shulchan Aruch brings it by galila. It seems to be galila is the most important. We always thought that Hagbah is the most important, and Hagbah seems to be, all of a sudden, the galila seems to be the most important aliyah, or the most important covet, and we know that we give it to a child. And why does the Shulchan Aruch split it up into Kuf Lamed Daled, the halachas of Hagbah? And why is he putting Hagbah before the Ilchas laning, and then after laning he puts the Galila? Something is very, very interesting over here, that's for sure. And this is Aymed Arsheni, these two Simonim. So this is all part of the mystery. And let's try and see what was the process of Hagbah Galila as the Masechta Sefer brings it down. The Masechta Sefer, which is found in the back of the Masechta Avodah Zarah, in Yad Yad. How do you remember this for the rest of your life? Rabbi say you do Hagbah with both hands, Yad Yad. In Siman Yudalit, in Perek Yudalit, excuse me, in Perek Yudalit, in the Masechta Seifrim, in Halacha Yudalit, in Masechta Seifrim, Yad Yad. Very easy to remember for the rest of your life. Says the Shulchan Aruch, and it says the Masechta Seifrim, and the Masechta Seifrim starts out with the word Yad. So Yad Yad Yad. Remember this for the rest of your life. Very good. You're bringing it. Perfect. Masechta Seifrim Yad. Says the Masechta Seifrim miyad. This is immediately. Now it seems to be that this Masechta Seifrim has just gone through the process of taking out the Sefer Torah, Excuse me. Says the Shulchan, says the Masechta Sefer, miyad goylel sefer Torah ad shloisha dapim. Seems to be that this is the first thing that you do is immediately after you take out the sefer Torah from Dorin, right after you finish Brich Shmei, which Brich Shmei itself is Meyusid al Pi Kabbalah and a beautiful time for an Eis Tefillah. Rabbi Say, should I bring you the biggest raya that Brich Shmei is a very big Eis Ratzin and very big and very important. When they open up the Aron HaKodesh, it's a time to bet those to Eibishter and to daven and to ask, and it's a tremendous Eis Ratzin. The biggest raya is because everybody talks then. So that's the biggest raya of the importance of it. Right after you take out the Sefer Torah, it says the Masechta Sefer, miyad, goylel Sefer Torah. Goylel, don't we know goylel means to roll it up? Miyad, you close the Sefer Torah? Nah, goylel the Sefer Torah, I guess unroll the Sefer Torah, ad shleish dapim. You open the Sefer Torah to 3 dapim. Sometimes you see the fellow, he opens up 30 dapim, says the Masechta Sefer, you open up 3 dapim, umagbiyai, and now you pick it up. So goylel is now taking on a new mashmoyes. It means you open it up 3 amudim, as we call them, right? Or dapim, al kapanim, you open up 3 columns, 3 dapim, and now you pick it up, magbiyai, umare pnei ksivasai la'am. And you show it to the people. Now, this is also interesting. When we pick it up, how do we pick it up? So in Ashkenazi Sefer Torah, you pick up like this, and how are you going to show it to the Am? So let's see. So it says, say you open Mara Pnei Ksivasai la'am, oimdim liminai. You show it to the ones on your right. Now, what do you mean? How are you going to show it to the ones on your right? Now, we know always that kol pina shata paina hata paina liyamin. Now, we know if you take an Ashkenazi Sefer Torah and you go to the right, then who are the people seeing it? The people on your left. So what's going on here? I turn to my right, and the people on the right see the Sefer Torah. Then afterward, I go to the Smilai. Everyone should bow and say, and that's the end. Rabbi said this is definitely Omer Bar Darsheni, but now I guess a little bit we could start to uncover this mystery. It does seem to be that the Sefer Torah that was being discussed in the Masechta Seifrim is probably the Sefer Torah of the Sfardim. This is not a riot that the Sfardim are the real Jews, Rabbi say, but it seems to be that the olden style Sefer Torah was clearly like the Sefer Torah of the Sfardim. The Sefer Torah of the Sfardim, as you all know, it's in a box. It's a different type of a tzura than ours. And the way they do Agba is a whole different tzura. They pick up the Sefer Torah and they turn to their right. And they also have to goylel. What does it mean they have to goylel? They have to unroll it. They have to open up. When they open up the box, that is unrolling the 3 dapim. And then they pick up the Sefer Torah and they show it to the people on the right. They first turn to the right because kol pina shata painata painu liyamin. Therefore, they show it to the right. And the people on the right are the first ones that see it. And then afterward, they turn to the left and the people on the left see it. But now already it's beginning to make a little bit of sense, but it does seem to be that this taka is the minig of the Sfardim till today. And that's how the Shulchan Aruch brings it down in Siman Kuf Lamed Daled, that the Hagba and the Galila seemingly was one process. Not what we, the Ashkenazim, call the Galila, that we're rolling up the Sefer Torah. It seems to be that what the Gemara says, that the goylel is naitel schar kulam, is talking about the person who, the Gemara talks about the start of his job. The start of his job was he was goylel. That means he opens it up, he unrolls it, he's the goylel, and then the goylel afterward is going to be the magbiyah. So it's like saying, the person who's being goylel, obviously when he's being goylel, it's also being magbiyah. But what is he getting that incredible schar for? Because he's the one that's going to show it to the Am. And this is what the Mishnah Berurah explained in Siman Kuf Mem Zayin. Mishnah Berurah says that when the Gemara says the words "ha goylel" is noitel schar kulam, it's going on the magbiyah, what we today call the magbiyah. In those days, the goylel, the one that unrolled it, was also the magbiyah. So he unrolls it, and the Sfardim till today, he's the one that unrolls it, and he picks it up, and he shows it to the people on the right. And the minig of the Sfardim was that they did this taka before laning. They would actually do it before laning because look, HaRav, doesn't that make sense? You're showing everybody what we're about to lane. And that's the chshivas of the laning, to show everyone should be a part of it, that this is what we're about to lane. And that is the minig of the Sfardim. And that's the pshat that hanoitel schar kulam, is that the person that's going to be Magbia, so for the Ashkenazim, it's not going on the Goylal at all, says the Mishnah Berurah. It's going on the person that does Hagba. The person that does Hagba, and he's the one that lifts it up. Now, Avada will see in a moment, the Ashkenazim, we're going to also pick it up and turn to the right. And the first people that are going to see it are your people on the left, because you always go to the right. But when the Sfardim pick it up, they go to the right, and the people on the right see it. And they're going to do it, the minig of the Sfardim, in Siman Kuf Lamed Daled before. The Ramah says by us, and even though it sounds like that talk in the Masech Seifrim, and the Goyin says that that's a Gavaldik and Minig, and a lot of Taka in Eretz Yisrael, a lot of the Chassidim do that, but the Ramah says our Minig is that we're noyig to do it after Krias HaTorah. We do the Hagba after Krias HaTorah, and it's a Murdik Azach. I saw that the Kavachayim brings down a Knesset HaGedolah, that he says, what's the reason why the Ashkenazim were noyig now to make the Hagba after laning? He says, because the Hagba is so important, and it's so integral that people thought, that's the Iker. And right after Hagba, they would leave. And they didn't even stay for the laning. The laning was the Tafel. The Hagba was the Iker Abba Yisai. So Mamela, they left it, like the main course. They left it for after the laning so that people would stick around for the laning. Ad Kedei Kach, what's the Hagba and what's the Galila? So Akopanim, we today, the Ashkenazim, excuse me, we today, the Ashkenazim, we still have one time a kiyum of this, that we magbiya it and show to the oilam, to the right side first, of course, and that's on Simchas Torah. And the Adarabba, the Ramah brings down in Siman Kuf Mem Zayin and Siv Daled that we changed today from doing the Hagba in the way that they see it, because it was just too difficult. As everybody knows, you got to get that strong guy on Simchas Torah. The reason we do it like that on Simchas Torah is because hafach to show, we're mamash arayin in Torah, or to show that we know that sometimes the das Torah is fakert from our das, and to be meshaber our das to the Torah. The Chida actually brings down that some places they didn't do a Hagba because they were afraid that the Sefer Torah is going to fall. So that's why obviously we're not going to be able to pick it up and do it the way the Masech the Seifrim did, because then if I did the Sefer Torah once a year, no, it won't fall. But if you're going to do it like that the whole time, pick it up and do it backwards, that the Olam should see it. So therefore, that for sure is going to result Chalila in a Sefer Torah falling once. So what we do is we pick it up, and very important, you have to make sure that the Am can see. So you're going to have to pick it up higher. The Svardi fellow, it's heavier, so don't worry, they get theirs. But he has to pick it up, and they can see it. So we're going to have to pick it up higher so that it shouldn't get blocked by you. But this Abaisai is why it does seem to be that Be'emis, the Iker is Hagba. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says in Kuf Mem Zayin, Sivkat and Hey, Sivkat and Yutes, that the Iker Schar and the Iker Kibid is Taka Hagba, and not what we call Galila. And when the Gemara said Goylal, the Gemara meant, like I explained, that the Goylal is Noitel Schar Kula. I'm the one that opens it. Also, Rabbi Yisai, you could say more. Even by us, he's also called the Goylal. Doesn't he have to unroll it 3? Doesn't he have a job, the Magbiya, to unroll it and have the Tefer? The part with the stitching should be somewhere in the middle, that in Chalila it falls, it'll rip on the stitching and it won't rip the Sefer Torah Chalila. And also, isn't the Magbiya also a Goylal, that he also has to help on the bottom when the person's doing Galila? So he has enough of a shape Goylal, but there's no Shaila that if somebody asks you today, what's the Iker? The Iker is the Hagba. Bain for the Ashkenazim, Bain for the Sfardim, and the Galila is Chashiv, but it's not the Noitel Schar Kulam. And the truth is, there is one Shaila here, which I'll leave for the Oilam, and when you come to Eretz Yisrael, tell me an answer. I'd be happy to know the answer. What I don't understand, and I looked around and I didn't see any terutzim that Kimat didn't see any terutzim, and even the one teretz I saw is definitely not mistaber. Is why is it that the Shulchan Aruch brings in Kuf Lamed Daled the lachas of Hagba, and in Kuf Mem Zayin he brings down Galila, and over there he brings the halacha of the chshivas of Hagba and the Noitel Schar Kulam and giving it to the Chashiv. All right, the Sephardim do Hagba before laning, the way we just explained. And the Sephardim don't even have a Galila. They just have a Hagba, and that's it. So what exactly is going on here? Why didn't, over here in Kuf Lamed Daled, why didn't the Shulchan Aruch over here say, give Hagba to the Chash of a person? Why is he splitting it up into two Simanim? Something very difficult over here. Why is he telling you the importance of what he's calling Galila, which is really Hagba? He should have said in Kuf Lamed Daled. I don't have a good teretz, and Adarabah, I'd be happy to know. Now, the Chazanish said, don't forget, Galila is also very chashiv, because Avad, it's a part of the Hagba. Yarchei Shulchan and Tzivin Kupmem Zayin and Tzivkat and Tes, he says, it's taka very strange, our minig, because we taka give Hagba more chshivas. Now, I answered that, because the Iker is the Hagba, and Hagba is also a goylel, and in the time of the Shulchan Aruch and the Gemara, they're Galila meant the opening of the Sefer Torah, and that's all it meant. The word Gailel there meant the person who's doing the Hagba, but the Yarchei Shulchan is bothered that we're giving more of a chashivas to the Hagba. So the Yarchei Shulchan says an interesting thing. He says, this is why the minig of the Hasidim is the best. I think he's referring to Chabad, that the minig of Chabad, and this is Miusid really, the Tzemach Tzedek and others, that what the Chabad does, I found this out the hard way, because I was once, about 30 years ago in a different Gilgal, I was given an aliyah. I was given Hagba by a Chabad shul in America, and I obviously I'm not Chabad, so I didn't know their minhagim, and I was told to do Hagba, so I picked up this, and I went to sit down, didn't understand what was going on, and then no, you have to pick it up, and then after you pick it up, you put it onto the bima, and then you roll it. So the Yarchei Shulchan says that's the best minig, because then it's a Hagba, which is a goylel. That's what he brings down over there. But whoever doesn't have that minig, we've already explained that Avada, the Iker is the Hagba and showing the Am. And if you're doing it in the Sephardi Sefer Torah, it's the way it always was. And if you're doing it in Ashkenazi Torah, so then the Iker is the Hagba, and you should also do a Chelik of the Goyel, you unroll it. Das is L'chayra. The Maisa, the Sefer Chassidim in Tafshin Nun Zayin, he says that don't forget, the Galila is important. Now, it's interesting. The Sefer Chassidim says that a Zakin should do Galila. But when you look at the Sefer Chassidim, it's not Muchach. Maybe the Sefer Chassidim is talking about what we call Hagba. And when he says a Zakin should do Galila, he means he should be Goylel, Dainu, he should be doing the Hagba. An important person should be doing the Hagba. It's we give it to a Katan, the Sharfrayim in Chaf Aleph Yud, he brings down because we're supposed to inspire the child for Chinuch. Avada, and Taka the Ramah and Kuf Mem Tes brings down that we should be Mazar's children to bring, they should kiss the Sifrei Torah, and they should get involved, etc., etc. Some say that the child should be at least, bar mitzvah, close to bar mitzvah. The Maisa, the minig is that a kama that the child understands. At least in my shul, I'm manig in my shul that a child that understands. If he's already 6-7 years old, you can give him Galila, and that was always the minig, and that's Avada. But the Iker is to show the letters to the Oilam, the Sharfraim and Yudal Yud. He says, the Maisa, if you're not showing properly the Hagba, sometimes you have the person, he jumps up and he quickly sits down, so you're not Yotzei Hagba. And Chalila, I don't want to say, but it could be an Orla Yakim Misatayra Zayt. Don't just get up and sit down. Right? I guess if you're not Yotzei, you can't embarrass the person, Chas v'Shalom, that he should do it again. But you have to realize that the Hagba is a thing. The place can bring down, you should give it to a Talmud Chacham Hagba. The Bach says, you know why? Because he's the one that's going to know how to do it properly. Right? The problem is not always are the Talmid Chachamim, are they those strong chevra, but the Maisa is supposed to do it, and that's why Baruch Hashem, we're all learning it together, so that we should know how to do the Hagba properly. Now, the Maisa, the Iker is to show the Oilam. You look in the Sefer, in the Masech the Seifrim, and the Lashon in the Masech the Seifrim. I'm going to get to how to do Hagba in a moment. That's Hashem, Rabbi Leibovitz. But you look in the Masech the Seifrim, and you'll see that it seems to be that the Iker minig of Hagba is everyone should see it. It says over there, Anoshim v'Noshim. I don't want to, I don't want to give ideas to the bad guys these days, right? They're trying to make the Kaisel into a reformed temple, but it seems to be from the Masech the Seifrim that the idea of the Hagba is everybody should see it. Anoshim, Noshim v'Taf. That was the Lashon in the Masech the Seifrim. So what's this all about? And how do we Mekayim this today? The Hilchas Ktanis bring down that some walked around the shul and got all the way to the Ezras Noshim. Right? If I'm not mistaken, I think a lot of the Sephardi shuls, they actually do this. I tried to Mevar today and was unsuccessful. They go to the Ezras Noshim. But that's what it seems to say in the Masech the Seifrim. Now, Lamaisa, the Tzitz Eliezer in Mem Yud Beis, he's got to talking about in Yud Beis Mem. He's got to talking about something different. He's talking over there about when the person does psicha and he takes out the Sefer Torah, and he says, don't go over to everyone in the shul. People should come to kiss the Sefer Torah. Not that you should go to the people, but so maybe you could say that Hagbah is the same thing, right? And that they're supposed to come to the Hagbah. That's what the Ashkenazim do. But one thing is bar, that the Hagbah shouldn't be chick-chack. It should be slow and calm and benachas, that everybody's able to see it, right? And Taka, if you can't do it, says the Shar Ephraim in Yudalad Yud, don't do it, right? And okay, obviously, I got a shayla once from an old age home, and the person told me that sometimes there's a matzah, there's nobody there who's capable of doing Hagbah. So what should they do? He said until now they were trying to get somebody to come in from off the street sometimes, and he should do the Hagbah, but it doesn't always work. He asked me, should they get a goy? Imagine that as Yamoid, right? Leroy ben Leroy Chalila, a guy for Chalila. I told him in that case, you can't do Hagbah, and that's the covenant of the Sefer Torah. Is to worry in safeguarding the covenant of the Sefer Torah, that Chalila, that the Sefer Torah shouldn't fall, and not to be Ibechachim. And that's what Rabbi Yisai brings us the next halacha: how wide to open up the Hagbah. So, sometimes you get this young bacher and he wants to open up and he wants to show everybody, right? There's no milah in we don't want to find out the hard way, Rabbi Yisai, and we don't want to say, we learn for next time. The Shar Ephraim in Yudalad says that Enochanami, if it's a small and easy one, no, you can open it more, right? You can open it more than possible. Like, for example, sometimes you have chevra that they pick it up and they open it in the air. They give you a big shock, right? So the Shar Ephraim says, if it's small, you can do that. It's not exeris akosiv that it has to be unrolled on the bima. But obviously everyone understands that that's not the proper thing to do, is to scare people like that with a Sefer Torah and to use a Sefer Torah as a barbell, you dumbbell. So what you should do is that obviously open it on the bima, unless it's a small Sefer Torah. No, if it's a small Sefer Torah, so then that's not a big deal. Those mini Sefer Torahs, right? The Rebbes, a lot of them, they take Hagbah. They take Hagbah because they know Hagbah is Noitel Chakulam, and that's the Chashava. It's interesting. When I was a bacher, we went once to Shai Chesed, and in those days there weren't as many Gedolim pictures. And I didn't know what Rosh Hashanah Zaman looked like, but I knew I was davening the shul that Rosh Hashanah Zaman was davening it. And I was with two other bachrim, and we had a very intelligent conversation. I hope it wasn't during laning, but we had a very intelligent conversation. Which one of the fellows in the front with the pancake strimals, which one is Rosh Hashanah Zalman? We had a very intelligent conversation. I timed it was that guy, he timed this guy, and the other friend said it was that guy. That was the big machlekes. So one of the friends said it's that guy over there. I'm telling you, I know. I told him he's bevadai not Rosh Hashanah Zalman. I go, I don't know which one's Rosh Hashanah Zalman, but it's for sure not him. Why? Because he did Galila. That guy did Galila. I said he's for sure not Rosh Hashanah Zalman. So the other guy, maybe, I don't know. My guy, I think, is Rosh Hashanah Zalman. A very intelligent conversation. Afterward, we went over to a yid in the shul and we asked him, which one is Rosh Hashanah Zalman Orbach? So he said he said, Abba, that must have been Rosh Hashanah Orbach. He said, and he pointed to him, to that one. I said, no, lo yichol liyot, had to come back to Galila. That's the Galila mensch. Versteht, das kann nicht sein. He says, yeah, Rosh Hashanah Zalman tet Galila. Shlomo Zalman took Kallah because he wanted to show that every part of the avodah is chashiv. Every chelik of the avodah is chashiv. So Shlomo Zalman used to take Kallah. I saw a different sefer today. When I was looking into the Indian, it said Shlomo Zalman took Hagbah. Interesting. But Al-Kapanim, you see that Shlomo Zalman certainly took Hagbah. He took Kalila and appreciation. Al-Kapanim. But again, Machdishkin kunst, don't make kunzim, right? And you're supposed to taka, when you do the Hagbah, you're supposed to try and get it, that the tefer is in the middle, like it says in Shulchan Aruch in Kuf Mem Zayin. I did see that the Shiniver says that today, our Sifrei Torah are much stronger, and it's not Mistabed, they're going to rip, but the Lamaisa, that's the minhag. You do like it says in Shulchan Aruch, you try to put the tefer somewhat in the middle, you try to take the stitching. When you do a Hagbah, you do it with 3, and you don't do it with 6. You don't do it with so many Amudim. Now, what's interesting is that there are Achreinim, the Magen Avraham, if I'm not mistaken, in Kuf Lamed Daled and Siv Gimel, he says maybe when the Masechta Seifrim says you should do 3 amudim, maybe it's bedafka. Mishabura and Sivkat Ches and Sivin Kuflam Dalit, he says, listen, it depends on the koyach of the Magbiya. I guess what the Mishabura means is that if you're going to make a matziv of where more people are going to be able to see the Sefer Torah, so then perhaps that's a Maila, a Kama, that more people will see the Sefer Torah, so then that's a Maila. So I guess if you're very strong, to pick it up even larger, but not to do something, obviously, and the guy's trying to go around, like I say, so das nicht. Now, again, there's no din, Rabbi Isai, that you have to do at the edge of the Sefer Torah, at the edge of the bima for leverage. It's just seichel. Obviously, it's much easier to pick it up like that. And that's what the minig is. The guy by taking off the ritzuas for Hagba. I looked around, Bain for Hagba, Bain for Galila. I saw the Zera Torah says to take it off because it's hard to grip. But, it's a Metzias thing, Rabbi say. If you need it for the grip, then you take off your ritzuas. If you don't need it for the grip, so then there's no din that you have to take it off. And the Vada, it's not a halacha that you have to take it off. I was in a shul once, and somebody was wearing his ritzuas, and somebody mamish made a big rash about it. You're not allowed to wear your ritzuas when you're doing Hagba, Galila. I am not familiar with such halacha. At Kamet, you have a grip, right? Get a grip. Now, how do we do the Hagba? So it's very interesting. Kipshutai, this is what we would have thought. Mistama, the simple thing to do Hagba is to do, like Rabbi Leibovitz asked before, a 360 turn. You go to your right, because called Pina Shata Paina Limin. And I am aware that the video camera is making me in the other direction, so you'll figure it out. But you go to your right and you just keep on going. And slowly, and everybody could see in the base medrash, and slowly, and I guess even though your back is at one point going to be to the Arna Kodesh, so your back is the Arna Kodesh, but there's a beam in between, and you're doing it l'kavod of the Torah, like Darshan, like the Shulchan Aruch talks about in Reish Pei Beis, that he's doing it l'kavod, that like the Taz talks about in Yeridei Reish Pei Beis, that he's doing it for the kavod of the Torah. So you go around and around, and l'chayra, that's l'chayra, that's l'chayra the pashtus. The 360 turn. And I see that the Kiryat Sefer, Hitaka says that the whole din, he said that the din of called peanuts is a din deraisa. So we find such a concept in the Talmud of the Ramah, the Be'er Sheva. He says in Saitan Tetzvavim Beis that you make a complete circle. And that's what the Maimon Mordechai says. And that's what the Pri Chadash says. The problem is the Masechta Sefer. The Masechta Sefer, if you remember, the words in the Masechta Sefer were you go to your min and then you're small. Now, it does sound like, and that's what you see a lot of people do, is they go like a half a circle to the yamin, and then like a semicircle to the yamin, and then they go the other way, a semicircle to the left. It sounds very strange. Why should it be like that? I mean, why not just go around one time and save gas? What's the pshat? And the emes is that I did see that the Mishnah Halachas brings that that's how you're supposed to do it, and so too Rav Yanke Fisher. But you should know that the Chzainish and Rosh Zalman and Rav Vosner, they all would just do a 360 turn, start going to the right. I the Masechta Seifrim. I'm not convinced Rabbi said the Masechta Seifrim. The Masechta Seifrim just says you show it to the Am and the Yamin, the people on the right and on the left. Now he means he's not exactly necessarily telling you how to do it. He's just telling you, you start with the right and you're going to get to the left. And he means you're showing everybody. So I'm not convinced that the diak is 100% diak. And if somebody goes around in a circle, that's absolutely fine. I myself, when I get Hagbah, that's what I do. I just go around in a 360 circle, starting to the right. And that's where Shlomo Zalman did, and that's about what a person could do. Now, Shlomo Zalman himself in the Alichot Shleiman, Yud Beis Kaf Ches, he says, let's say you're dealing with a small minion. Let's say you're dealing with a small minion. And, there's not as many people in the minion. There's only people on let's say, in the Corona minyanim, it was Negea. A lot of times you had to say for Torah on your merpesset on your balcony, and you only had to show it to them. So it's not, there's not a mitzvah tans, Rabbi Yisai. There's no mitzvah to go around 360 if there's nobody seeing it on that side. So if you have people only on one side and you just want to show it to them, so that's all you have to do. The whole purpose of the Hagbah, the objective is that people should see it. Side by side, you need not go around if there's a side that the people aren't there. I told you you can have it a lot of times in the shul, for example. Yeah, you can have it. You can figure out the cases. And the Corona Minyanim, I remember that's how it was by us. There was a Sefer Torah in that balcony, and then my balcony was my family, my people, and we were the half the minyan. So they only had to show it to us, and they were already there on their balcony, so they need not show it to the other side. Now, now he sits down. After he did his Hagbah, he sits down, and he, like we said, he should do a part of the Galila. Now, the Mishabura in the end of Kuf Mem Zayin says that a person has to be careful when he sits. You have to be careful to make sure. I'll read you the Mishabura. You have to make sure that your back is not going to be to the Sefer Torah. Here, I'll read you the Mishabura. Mishabura says, here, Leitayv Adavar Shenoigim Be'ezim Mekaymis. There's a few Leitayv Adavers. He says, not good. Be'ezim Mekaymis L'Masr L'Nar Katan. He doesn't like that you give it to a child to hold the Sefer Torah. We'll talk about that in a moment. Then he says, Gam Yizor Sha'oiches Sefer L'Srachik Sas Min Asad K'dei Shelo Yachzik HaSefer Achrei HaKoyrim BaTorah. Very interesting thing. He says over here that, very interesting. He says over here, I'm sorry, did that just say that? I missed that one about clockwise. I missed that one. I'm sorry, was it? The Gamizoyer, Ha'oiches a Sefer L'Srachik Sas Min Atzad. He says the person who's holding the Sefer Torah, K'dei Shelo Yachzik HaSefer Achrei HaKoyrim BaTorah. Very interesting Mishnah. Mishnah says that when the person does Hagbah, he says that the oiches b'Torah, the person holding the Torah, has to be misrachik sas. He should move over and shouldn't be right behind the people that are laning. Now, where's this negeya? It's negeya by HaTorah every week, right? It sounds like from this Mishnah Berurah, it does sound like the Mishnah Berurah is saying over here that the person who did Hagbah, he should make sure that he's not sitting in a way that the back of the person who's laning, he's laning the maftir, he's laning something, that his back is facing the Sefer Torah, his back is to the Sefer Torah, because that's improper that your back should be to the Sefer Torah. So the Mishnah Berurah brings over here, excuse me, he has to be careful where he sits, and he should move over slightly, right? Especially if there's like 2 or 3 Sefer Torah, you can have Hachanah and whatnot. And now the truth is, in Reish Pei Beis, in Yeridea, it talks about the darshan who's darshaning with his back to the Aron HaKodesh, and there you can be mekel. I guess there's no other breira, right? So pashtus is when a person does Hagbah, he should slide over. He should slide over. Or I suppose at least the person who's reading the maftir, he should go to the side of the bima, that his back shouldn't be to the Sefer Torah. Now, Rosh Zalman in Yud Beis Yudalid says that no, it's not a problem because the Sefer Torah is not in its mokim. This is not the mokim of the Sefer Torah, so he can't take over the place, and therefore he can't have a taina that somebody put his back to him, kivyachol, and adarabba, the person who's laning, he's in the mokim. But a Yiddish Hergish doesn't want his back to the Sefer Torah. I guess maybe not to make a machlav. You see somebody who did based on Rosh Zalman, but the Mishnah Berurah is mashma that this is definitely a problem. I guess that's a little bit of a linas chus. But when you're in the middle of a kafis and you see that your back there's a Sefer Torah right behind you, right? So I couldn't be masik doing such a thing, but you see sometimes that there's a person in his back, it's the Sefer Torah. So you have to say the Sefer Torah is not mamish in its place right now, therefore it's not as much as a bizayin. Can I give someone else to hold the so first of all, can I give somebody else to can I deny a hagbah? Should know our side there's a Shraga Gemara, and Shulchan Aruch brings down this idea in Siman Reish Aleph, that if you're offered benching or you're offered an aliyah, you're offered a Sefer Torah, you don't say no to a Sefer Torah. So if somebody offers you Hagbah, now obviously if you're offered Hagbah and you can't physically do it, so then you can't do it. And there's no Kallah on the person. But if a person can do Hagbah, but just he's in the middle of talking, or something, so then it's definitely not Beseder. It's definitely not Beseder. The Greta reminds me of a story. They asked Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein, they asked him that there was a gabbai who was in a shul and there was talking going on. And in the middle of laning, I guess they didn't know what it says in Siman Kuf Mem Vav, probably the most unbelievably shrekliche One of the most unbelievably shrekliche things in the whole entire Sefer Shulchan Aruch, right? But over here in Shulchan Aruch, in Kuf Mem Vav, it discusses the Anhaga and the behavior of a person in the middle of laning. Also, lot says you're not allowed to leave a Sefer Torah. You're not even allowed to go out being gaver legaver, Rabbi said. You can't even go out being gaver legaver unless he already heard the laning. Okay, right? Hainu kishinas sharu asara. Hainu shikfar shama Krias HaTorah, or he's going to hear it somebody else. V'gamzei no mutter unless it's Torah gadol. Okay, once they started Krias HaTorah, also l'saper afilu b'divrei Torah. You're not allowed to talk, and afilu ben gaver legaver. You're not allowed to talk. As a cooler, you're allowed to learn to yourself, but you're not allowed to talk, right? And over here, it says in the Bir Halacha something unbelievable. I wouldn't say it if the Bir Halacha didn't say it, but the Bir Halacha over here, right at the end of the Siman, he says, "Hinei zeh asif tachacha megula." This is a tachacha megula for the people that they talk and they're mafkir nishayseyim. They're mafkir their life. They're suicidal and they talk in the middle of Krias HaTorah. They're suicidal. Even ben gaver legaver is aser. And kama yigdala iser beis sefer is basuach has v'shalom. If the Sefer Torah is open, it's a bizayin gadol noyer vayim. He writes here, gadol avaynayim minasai. Rabbi Isai, when was the last time you heard those words that this was gadol avaynayim minasai? There was a person who killed a quarter of the world. He killed billions and billions and billions of people. His name was Cain, and he said, "Oh, it's gadol avaynayim minasai. I can't bear the punishment of what I just did." So the tantamount to that is a person that talks during Krias HaTorah. It's tantamount to murdering a quarter of the world. The Cain killed when he said those words. So there was a story that somebody obviously didn't know this and obviously didn't learn for an entire week the importance and chshivas of Krias HaTorah. And he was talking and he was being mafkir his nefesh. So the Gabbai had enough. So the Gabbai went over, tapped him on the shoulder, and said, "Hagba." You know, the only thing is he didn't tell him that it wasn't Hagba yet. It was Ravi. So this guy came up, you know, and as he went up, he said to him, it's a heavy Sefer Torah. So this guy went up and went over in the middle of Ravi and picked up the Sefer Torah. You can imagine the laughter, Rabbi Isai. So that this person asked Rabbi Yitzchak Silberstein, did he have a right to do this? Number one, it's Malbim Pnei Chaver B'Rabim, and number two, he asked him that l'chayra it's a design to the Sefer Torah. Why should the Sefer Torah have to suffer because of this fellow? So Rav Yitzchak Silberstein, I don't remember seeing the tshuva inside, but I heard it. Rav Yitzchak Silberstein apparently said that it's Beseder. That's the covenant of the Sefer Torah. I malbim pnei chaver b'rabim. No, what does it say in Shulchan Aruch? If a person in Siman Kuf Chav Daled, where it talks over there about a person speaking in Chazar Sashatz. So if there's no way to stop him, and this Knira was obviously you can't do this the first time, but if there's no way to stop the person, so goyer boy. What's the pshat? I once asked Chaim Kanievsky, you're going to embarrass the person. So Chaim Kanievsky answered back, Kishoiver Beis HaMedrash. In other words, everybody say, a person that's talking in the Beis HaMedrash, he's talking in the Beis HaKnesses, he's talking in the middle of laning, he's destroying the Beis Medrash. He's going to be the destruction of the Beis Medrash. What would happen if somebody in the middle of davening would walk in with a hammer and start smashing up the Aron HaKodesh? Would we go over to him and nicely explain to him, it's not really such a nice thing to do? We would start getting involved in Malbim Pnei Chaver B'Rabim. Maybe we should, but we certainly wouldn't. So that was that. So this person, he got his with the Hagba. Akapanim, coming back to our sugya, the Maisa, when it comes to the Hagba and somebody offers you a Hagba, take it. Unless you're unable to, unless it's too heavy. If it's too heavy, then you say no. But otherwise, you might be begeder chalila. The person might be begeder a Kallah, that if you're offered a Sefer Torah, Torah is ki chayecha ve'oirich yamecha. Hazar oilam no zicha. So it's life. So maybe accepting the Torah's life. They say that during that kafis, a person should always accept the Sefer Torah. Okay, you tell the person beforehand, I already got one, right? I already got a hakafa. But the Mishabura brings down over here that technically, if a person has no breira, technically he can give the Sefer Torah to a katan to hold, if need be. But lichatchila, a person is supposed to hold the Sefer Torah himself after he does Hagba. Rav Moshe Zechron Levracha and Aleph Lamed Ches has a very, very vehemently angry tshuva against this minig of taking the Sefer Torah and putting it in the holes and not holding the Sefer Torah. Rav Moshe says it's better to just put it back in the Aron HaKodesh, and that's a bizayin, that you should take the Sefer Torah and that you should put it in the holes. Now you have to know about say this Rav Moshe was marish to oilam. It was something that shook the whole world, because this Rav Moshe, there was a minig in Preshburg. I think the Ksav Sofer has a tshuva about it, that they actually had the minig that they after they did Agba, they would put it in those holes. You ever wonder what those holes are on the bima and the old shuls? So they used to take the Sefer Torah and they would put it in the holes. And Maisa, the ganze Welt today, I think, unless I'll be told not like that in a moment, but I think the ganze Welt today is noyig like Rav Moshe, Zichron Levracha, and the Magbia does hold the Sefer Torah. But you see over here the incredible sensitivity of Rav Moshe Gahat, the Klape, the covet of the Sefer Torah. Rav Moshe held that you would even have to stand at kama that nobody's holding the Sefer Torah. And obviously, if it's too hard, then you put the keser of the Sefer Torah, you put it on afterward, you put the crown on afterward. Now, the Maisa, the Goylel, the rules of the Goylel, he also gets schar. You can tell that, the kids, they go from 8th grade, they were the guys doing Hagba. Then they get to 9th grade, and now they go back to doing Galila. So you tell them Galila is also chosh. Galila is also chosh. You have to be careful, Megillah Daf Lamed Beis, not to touch the klaf. You have to be careful not to touch the klaf. This is why some wanted to say it's better to use the old style vimple, gartel, tie it, because you don't have to wind up touching the klaf, and tying a bow and a knot, which we explained is a shaila halacha, than to use the heintige buckles, the Velcro ones. Because those ones, generally, you wind up touching the klaf more. The Maisa, there's no shaila that Medina, it's mutter, because that's a tzarech, the Sefer Torah. Again, you should be careful not to touch the klaf. Obviously, don't be too careful. If as a result of you trying to get your talis to pick up the klaf when it's about to fall, it's going to be a mamish aganza, then zicher, you should pick up the Sefer Torah, you should pick up the klaf. Now, if it touched Avada, the Pri Megadim in Kuf Mem Zayin, he says it's only usher. And that which the Gemara says in Megillah Daf Lamed Beis, that it's, you lose the schar, and you're not going to get the schar for Hag Galila, is if you touch it with your bare hands. That's only if it wasn't for a tzorech of the Sefer Torah. If it's a tzorech of the Sefer Torah, it is allowed. The Maisa, what's the Makor to take does Dailam know about this? That you're supposed to do Galila, it's supposed to be in the Shlisha Elyon. Like a mezuzah, you do the Galila, you tie it in the upper third. It should be in the upper third. Did Dailam know this? I found this out when I was a little kid. An overzealous fellow came over to me. I did the Galila, and I did it halfway. And he quickly ran over to me and picked it up all the way to the top, which is also not so good, but it means the Shlish Elyon. So years later, I've been doing that for years, because that's what I saw the fellow tell me to do, right? But the mice, I look around. It's a very hard meaning to find, right? It doesn't say this kemat anywhere in the ganze Welt. There is a Darkei Chaim V'Shalom, the Munkatcher. He says it's like a mezuzah, but if you don't have this minig, it definitely has a very, very shvacha mekayris. Very, very shvacha mekayris. In Shulchan Aruch, the job is not over yet, Rabbi Isai. In Shulchan Aruch Kuf Mem Tes, it says over here that part of the job of the Magbia and the Goylel, the Mekaymis Shematzni is, sorry, I'll read it to you. Maybe in the Ramah. Here. The Kena Goylel Yelech Achar as Sefer Torah. Part of the job of the Goylel is to walk after the Sefer Torah. And he should be, the Kena Yigim Magbia Sefer Torah, Ki Hu Ekar Goylel. The Magbia and the Goylel, your job is not over. Your job is afterward. Now, on a Monday and Thursday, this only goes with the Minig Ashkenazim, obviously, that we do Hag B'Galila, and then right after Hag B'Galila, okay, you say the Yiratzin, and then you do Hachnasa. You bring back the Sefer Torah. So there, part of the job of the Magbia Goylel is to give the covet to the Sefer Torah and continue walking after it. Nusach Sfar doesn't have that, because you're not going to expect the Magbia and the Goylel to wait until after, Ashrei, Valtzion, etc. So on Mincha Shabbos, you can certainly have that. Mincha Shabbos, even Nusach Sfar puts it back. So the Magbia and the Goylel, part of their job is to walk after the Sefer Torah, like it says. Obviously, like it says in the Sefta Seifrim, and the Ramah brings down in Kuf Mem Vav, that there's a chiyuv to stand when the Sefer Torah is lifted up, and there were paiskim that discussed, maybe there was no chiyuv, but that was a discussion when they, in the old shuls in Sfas, when the bima was high up and it was maybe on a different floor came up. But today, obviously, you have a chiyuv gomer to stand when they pick up the Sefer Torah. The Behativ and Steve Hey over here quotes the Arizal that you're supposed to look at the Ksav and it's an or gadol when you look. And not only that, you're supposed to look for the first letter of your name. So me, I always look for a shin for Shragi. There's no Shragis in the Torah. So Baruch Hashem, there's Moishes. So I can always look for Moshe and Kimat always, except in Parshas Tetzaveh, you're going to find the Moshe. And once you find the Moshe, you found the shin. And there's a big Inyan. The Magbia is also supposed to look at the Torah by side. Do you know that some Achreinim say the reason why Nusach Ashkenaz changed and that we changed the surah of the Sefer Torah to go that direction and not the way of the Svardim that it faces the Tzibur is because we want the Magbia also to look. So for that one guy, we changed the whole surah of the Hagba that we don't open up the box and that we, so make sure the person who is the Magbia should also be looking at the Sefer Torah. You should also be looking at the Sefer Torah for sure. The obviously Chalila, you never push and stup and das. I have had a mitzaychel. Now, why don't we bow to the Sefer Torah? The lashon of the Shulchan Aruch is lichraya, and we say this in Brich Shmei. Disagidna kamei. We bow to you, the Sefer Torah, right? It's baigin to the Sefer Torah. We're bowing to the Sefer Torah. And Taka, the Har Tzvi in Simon Tamach Daled, he says yes to bow. And the Ben Ish Chai says bow. He says on Shabbos, connect the amount of oilim. If there's 7 oilim on Shabbos, bow 7 times. So what's the pshat in the minig oilim? Right? There are Rosh Hashanah Zalman and Divrei Yatziv, the Melam Tzchus on this. They say nowadays we don't see the ksav, we see the person who's doing the agba, so it's going to look like we're bowing to him. But I don't know. I don't think it's also to bow. What about the Zayis HaTorah? So it's interesting. I mean, most of us say Zayis HaTorah. Now, you all know that's not a pasuk in Veschanan. And some people have the minig, they say Torah Hashem Tmima, right? And each piece of it, you keep your minig. I say, because that's what it says in the Siddur, and the Siddur is the pasuk. What should I tell you? You say it when you see the letter. Sometimes he picks it up and he didn't get to you yet. You're supposed to say Zayis HaTorah. Now, you just saw me point. This is very interesting. You're supposed to point. So there are Gedolim that don't, and they just bow. In the Miamlo ways, and in the Chaim Pelagi, he brings down that with your tzitzis, you're supposed to point to the ksav of the Sefer Torah. That's what it says over there. Now, it would be mashma a little bit. You're supposed to point with your finger, the pointer, and you know the ganze Welt points with the pinky. Now, if I say, I don't know what to tell you why they point with the pinky, right? I know what they told us in the Haim. In the Haim, they told us, I don't know if this is the real reason, but in the Haim, they told us because the fellow, it got the Shmek Tabik. The Gedenkst that I say, you remember the Shmek Tabik they had? So, you know, Yana he came around with his Shmek Tabik. He came with the Tabik. You got it from the Tabik Pushka. And, you know, this poor guy with the Tabik Pushka, he wanted to give it out during laning, and, you know, he had to wait the entire Krias HaTorah. So finally it gets to you, and you have a little Tabik. So you have, you know, your little finger loch over here with the Tabik. Now, it's Kum Tagba, what are you going to do? You're going to point? If you're going to point, the Tabik is going to fall. So you have to go like, so it went like this, right? So that's how the pinky came. Everybody say, I don't know if that's the real answer, but it works for me. My father points with the pinky, so I point with the pinky. What should I tell you? Everybody say, ich weiß nicht. The ikar is to look and not to schmooze. Sometimes, you know, he's talking to the guy, like he's just going like this with his pinky. But the ikar is to look at the Sefer Torah. Right? That's the ikar, is to look at the Sefer Torah. Can I give Hag B'Galila to a father and a son team, or 2 brothers, etc.? So the truth is that we know there's an Inyan of Ayin Hara, and it's brought over here in Shulchan Aruch and Siman Kuf Mem Aleph. Not to give 2 brothers one after the other, a father and a son right after the other. And it's called Minei Shailas if they got called up already and whatnot. So there are those that say it's the same thing by Hag B'Gvila, and there are those that are Mekel. I'll tell you, it seems to be that the Inyan of why we don't want 2 together is it looks like they're taking over. So in places that when they call up the Magbia and the Goylel, they don't call them up by name. So then it's a lot more kuladik. And and those places, there is a big markup to be makel to put up two brothers together and a father and a son, because you're not saying their name. In a place where you say their name, so then maybe you do have to be chayshish for the ayin hara. But if you don't call up their name, says the Aruch HaShulchan, so then there's a more of a makim taka to be makel. Now, the Maisa, the Mishabura brings down that you could start the Yiratzin before the end of Galila, because people are rushing. It's a mundane Thursday, but by the HaTorah, it's not correct. You wait till you finish Hagba, Galila, and then you start the HaTorah. Maisa, Abaisai, thus is Pachas Yoiser, the Hagba, the Galila, and I hope it just whet your appetite for coming to Shalayim Yarchei, for the Hemshech HaSugya of Krias HaTorah, to see all the Gedolei Olam and the Tzadikim that are going to be giving you Shiurim Bezes Hashem. And I look forward to seeing, hopefully all of you, or at least most of you, Yerushalayim Yarchei. B'mheira b'yameinu. Amen.
Amen. Go. Yasher Koyach. And thank the Rav for everything he's done for us. And Mir Shem, and as he said, everything he'll be doing for us. We hope to see him, Mir Shem, next week.